Welcome back to the Tracy Take. Today, Ryan and I will be previewing the first of two NFC North matchups between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. But before we get into that, make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Hit that notification bell so you can see when we create new content. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video with your Packers and Vikings friends, and let us know their thoughts. And Ryan, with that being said, let's
Let's
get
do
into
it.
it. So I kind of forgot when just doing some research. I forgot that Green Bay's 8-2. Like I knew they were winning the NFC North. Um,
Yeah.
but at this point, and we'll get into their schedule here in a little bit. I'm pretty sure they have the division locked up, knowing where the Vikings are at. The Lions might make a comeback. Just kidding. But I think, have the division locked up. So I think they almost have a playoff position secured. The Vikings, however, this is a very important game for them. I think they still have opportunities to make the playoffs thanks to the NFC North being so weak. But I
Yeah.
want to get your thoughts on how do you think this game's going to go, what the outcome's going to be, and then we're going to break down the playoff implications at the end.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a really good game. Minnesota has not really been in a lot of games that have not been entertaining this year.
That is a good point.
I don't expect this one to be any different. I think Minnesota is probably the best 4-5 team that I've ever seen. They've lost so many last-second field goal games, last-second touchdown. And granted, they've won a few this year, but they've definitely lost a lot that they shouldn't have. They've had a few unfortunate turnovers. Sometimes they just didn't get the ball first in overtime. So it's just, I think this Vikings team is no joke, and I think they could catch a lot of teams off guard with their record being 4-5. I'm huge fan, like Dalvin Cook's one of the best running back in the league. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, extremely solid wide receiver duo. Kirk Cousins having a pretty decent year, only throwing 2 interceptions and about just under 2,500 yards. So
that sounds like a great
this
year. That sounds like a phenomenal one interception for every 1,200 yards you throw. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree with that. But no, so I mean, I really like the way this game kind of plays out. Green Bay's secondary is a little weak. Jair Alexander's on IR, but I don't know. And then on the flip side, Aaron Rodgers is having, I guess, actually not as good of a year as Kirk Cousins, but Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones. That's another duo that's really good. So
yeah. So I kind of want to challenge a little bit because the thing actually I had that it's going to be very interesting to watch is going to be this Green Bay pass defense, which is ranked third overall in passing yards per game, to this Minnesota's pass offense, which has Justin Jefferson, as you said, Adam Thielen, Tyler Conklin, the tight end, just had two touchdown games of Irv Smith Jr. Get Dalvin Cook and Anthony Madison catching the ball out of the backfield, and they can both run, as well as KJ Osborne as well as your number 3 receiver. I think that one thing that's really impressed me a lot about this Green Bay team has been how good their defense has been throughout the season. They're third overall in points allowed per game on the defensive side, only allowing 18 points per game. Like this defense really actually is the reason why the Green Bay Packers are 8-2 and are leading the NFC North and have kind of locked up that division title. And I know there's a little less than half the season left, but just looking at the games that have to be played. While on the flip side, offensively, they are ranked 19th all across the board. Points allowed per game, points per game on offense, and 19th in yards per game and yards per game on both passing and running. So it's not like they're blowing teams away like how we've seen with Green Bay with this great high flying offense. It really has been actually defense and holding the teams to just holding the teams to as few points as possible, which I know is the goal of football. But we haven't normally seen that from the Green Bay Packers. So I'm very curious to see how this game plays out. Because this Minnesota offense, I think, is one of the best in the league, and I think that they can really put some serious points up against just the average defense.
Yeah, and so I will say I think the Green Bay Packers pass defense is good, but I just don't know. Looking back at their schedule, I just don't really see a whole lot of elite passing teams. First of all, played the Saints week 1, and they got beat 38-3, but Jameis Winston's numbers were very fairly mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Then they played the Lions. And then they played the 49ers. 49ers had a good game against them. Then they played the Steelers. The Steelers' pass offense is splotchy. They kind of hit a few plays here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but they mainly try and run that offense through Najee Harris, and then put up jump balls with Chase Claypool.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a good game against the Bengals, but then they played the Bears, Washington. They had a good game against Arizona. They had a really good defensive game plan against Arizona. They played the Chiefs with a lot of woes in that game, and then they played the Seahawks, who just got Russell Wilson back from a finger injury that required surgery.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how they fare against an offense that's clicking that has talent, because frankly, I can pick 3 games so far that they've really had to play against strong passing offenses that are clicking.
Yeah, and I think the game that sticks out to me that you mentioned was the Arizona Cardinals game.
Yeah.
Because they really controlled, in my opinion, that entire game. They methodically moved the ball down the field, a lot of dink and dunk passes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron Rodgers only threw for like 180 yards in that game. But they ran the ball extremely well against, at the time, the number 1 defense in Arizona. And they also stopped one of the premier offenses from effectively moving the ball down the field for a majority of the game. They ended up winning because they got unlucky and then lucky with just weird goal line scenarios on both sides of the field. But they still ended up winning the game when they did not have – no one gave them a shot because they did not have Devontae Adams or Alan Lazard as well. And so I think we're getting to the point of the season where you really have to look at who's the coach on the other side of who's coaching. And Matt LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the league. And I think he's going to put Green Bay in a good position to win, especially knowing that how effective that defense is. I think they're going to find an offensive game plan against this Minnesota team, which has a clear weakness, which we'll get into in a second, because which is the running defense. But I think offensively, they're going to find a game plan on how to effectively move the ball down the field. Especially now, since they don't have Aaron Jones for a couple of weeks, they're going to need to find a way to run the ball against this Minnesota team, which is ranked 28th in yards allowed per game. So it's A.J. Dillon, right? It's not Austin Dillon.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon, I think, is going to have a game. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls in the backfield, but they're also going to move him. They're also going to hand the ball off to him a lot and try and control the clock. So then their defense can rest up and be as effective as possible against this very, very talented offensive unit in Minnesota.
Yeah. You mentioned Mike LaFleur or Matt LaFleur. Mike LaFleur is the Jets coordinator.
Yeah.
But Matt LaFleur, Mike Zimmer's no slouch either. Mike Zimmer's been doing this a long time. Yeah. And I don't see him shutting down the Packers offense. I just think this game is going to be lower scoring than I think people give it credit for. I think the way that the Minnesota defense is going to play the Packers and the Packers strategy to kind of come in and try and control the clock will end up just running out a lot of time, making teams take long possessions. Yeah. This is a division game. I mean, these guys go against each other twice a year. So I think they know each other really well. And honestly, I don't like these games are so hard to predict because
so that's
you just never know.
Let's get into the prediction because it is Green Bay's 2.5-point favorites with the over-under at 49. I agree with you. I think it's going to be an under. I think I can see it probably being like a 24-21 type game. Both teams like to methodically move the ball down the field with several explosive plays in between with Devontae Adams or Justin Jefferson. But I think with the 2.5-point spread, I think Minnesota needs to win this game, and I think they can. I think Green Bay is a little bit vulnerable, and I think if they can get some drives together and get up a couple touchdowns, I think it's going to be hard for Green Bay to effectively move the ball down the field through the air. They haven't been consistently able to do it throughout the year. So I think Minnesota's going to win a tight one. I think it's going to be like a 24-21 game, in my opinion.
Yeah. A last-second field goal is finally going to go in Minnesota's favor.
Yeah, I think so.
I really want to pick Minnesota. It's understandable.
It's a tough game.
I just feel like the Packers are gonna edge this one out. Aaron Rodgers said it in the Chicago game, but he still owns this division. He still owns it, and
Yeah.
I just don't think anything has changed. So I mean, I'm going to pick the Packers. I agree. I'm going to say 23-20. I think there's going to be a lot of field goals.
Hmm.
Usually, teams that give up a lot of yards or I don't say that because a lot of times when you have a lot of yards, you have a bad defense. But
Yeah.
sometimes when teams give up a lot of yards, they can get stingy in the red zone, and I think that's kind of what these two teams do,
Hmm.
and that's why Minnesota's been in so many close games, is because it's hard to score touchdowns. So
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm going to pick the Packers 23-20, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, just last thing to wrap up, just going to be the playoff implications. Is, as we said, Green Bay, they are right now the number one seed in the playoff, have home field advantage. They would love to have that again. With Minnesota, though, they're sitting 4-5, just outside the playoff bubble. Well, sorry, they're in the playoff bubble. It's number 8 overall. But this game is so important for Minnesota. If Green Bay doesn't win, like, that's fine. It's like they want to have home field advantage and keep their streak going. Um, but with Minnesota, though, they have some opportunities because they still play the Lions and they played the Bears twice as well. So let's say they win all 3 of those games. That puts them at 7 wins. They play the 49ers, which I think they can win, but 49ers are starting to play well. The Steelers, I think they can beat, but that's going to be a tough game. Another playoff team. The Rams, another playoff team. And they play the Packers again. So this is a crucial game because you just don't know how teams are going to play in and out, and then you're going to be playing against other
Mhm.
playoff teams down the
and
stretch. So
and
this
8 and
this is a
9
must win.
and 8 and 9 in the NFC could possibly be a 7 seed.
It's starting to get that way. Because I don't see the Saints or the Panthers hanging on to their 6 and 7 spot right now. So
No.
I think they're going to have at least 3 or 4 more losses just looking at their schedule.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be very tight. Minnesota has to win this game, and if they do that, they go to 5-5, and I think that that helps their playoff chances tremendously because I think they can win at least 4 more games this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. But all in all, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Tracy Take. If you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win this NFC North matchup.